Welcome to the first movie club episode, and unlike a movie, my lighting is very bad because the battery I use for my ring light is dead. So, that aside, let's talk about 1989's Kitchen, an adaptation of Banana Yoshimoto's book of the same name. And I want to get out in front of this and say, I am disappointed in this film. I believe it's a drama adaptation. I think it was a TV adaptation. But I'll say, you know what? Let me start positive. Cinematically, really enjoyed it. And the music was really good. The acting, I think, is in the middle. There was some acting that I thought was good. Some acting I thought was subpar. But also, I need to look at it in the context of Japanese cinema acting is probably different to the acting I expect here in the West. But also, I mean, having watched movies from the 80s, you can act a lot better than that. But also, some of the actors were very young. Our main character, Mikage, the actress was 18 at the time of this film, and she actually puts on a pretty good display of someone who is kind of very much believable to be a teenager, even though I believe Mikage is supposed to be older in this. But all of that aside, I am disappointed in this, mostly because of the plot. So, you guys know that I really liked Kitchen. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was heartfelt. It was out there. It said something different, especially at the time that it was written, the way it spoke about, you know, people, it's kind of like trans individuals. It was so different. It was so progressive. And then this movie kind of... Okay, so basically, halfway through the book, well, give or take halfway, Eriko, the trans individual, is killed. She's murdered brutally. And it completely changes the novel from then on. And then it really kicks into gear the characters and their development and their changes, those who are left, Mikage and Yuichi. However, in the movie, they decide, let's not do that. So they follow the plot of the book more or less halfway through the movie. It's an hour 45, around the hour mark is when things change completely. Maybe, yeah, I'd say around the hour mark, the movie just veers away from the book for the worse. So in the book, Eriko is killed. Eriko's killed, it is depressing, it is sad, Yuichi spirals, and Mikage basically has to fill the role that Eriko and Yuichi did for her when her grandmother passed away. And it shows Eriko growing and shows Mikage growing, becoming a different person, becoming even more confident, and then Yuichi kind of understanding that he should accept help and should actually embrace his feelings for Mikage, and Mikage does the same for Yuichi. That's great. That's really a tour de force of emotions in the book. In the movie, however, they're like, actually, Eriko has gender dysmorphia. Kind of. It's not like really gender dysmorphia. Obviously, this is a movie of its time. It's 1989. And so they were like, well, Eriko thinks she's a woman and a mother, so we have to put her in the psychiatric hospital, guys. And it's like, oh, okay. That doesn't really seem like something that needed to be done, really. If you look at Eriko's character throughout this movie, didn't really seem to need to be the case. And unfortunately, it kind of devolves into becoming a very standard romance story. I mean, you can tell throughout the first half there were some subtle changes. For example, Yuichi and Mikage are more familiar with each other right from the off, whereas in the book it takes a little while for them to become familiar with each other. And very quickly these two seem like they have romantic feelings for one another, and it's hinted to throughout the first half. They even added this kind of awkward scene with Eriko and Mikage where it kind of seems like Mikage and Eriko are like, Mikage, you should tell Yuichi you like him, and then Mikage's like, no, I can't do that, it's weird, and then it just devolves into a scene that I don't believe was in the book. And also they cut out a really nice scene. I think it replaced a scene where Eriko is like describing her journey in becoming a woman, and that was such a lovely scene in the book, and I just replaced it with this very awkward, almost confrontation between Eriko and Mikage, which wasn't needed and actually kind of ruined Eriko's character for me a little bit. But I digress. So they added that romantic element there, and then the second half is just like, well, I guess we need to get Yuichi and Mikage together, even though they do come together in the book. But they made it so like typical rom-com, like, oh, they want to spend more. Eriko's not there anymore, so they can spend time alone. They can get close. They can have dinner. They can celebrate. You know, it's lovey-dovey. But like, Yuichi doesn't go through any struggle. His main struggle is he drives escorts and the people who are paid for their services to a hotel, and that's illegal. And it's like, that's not conflict for him. That's him making money. He's like, I don't like my job. But it's also, you're making money, Yuichi, and maybe you're doing something a little bit illegal, but you're not actually soliciting. So, I don't know. This is also Japan, I think, literally at the end of the bubble burst, I think. So, at the very beginning of the bubble burst. So, I don't know. Maybe that plays something into it. But 1989, the bubble bursts, I think, in like 1989. So, I don't know. That really doesn't play a part in it. That could have been something interesting if this movie came out a couple of years later, where they, you know, the financial aspect of it maybe was something you can rope into the movie as if you want to stay away from the discussion of trans identity and, you know, like murder and stuff. And I'm sure because it's Japan, they were, in the late 80s, they were like, oh, we can't show murder on television. I don't know though, because I didn't watch Japanese TV in the late 80s, obviously. So, and then, you know, they add this plot of Eriko for basically starting a relationship with one of her doctors at the psychiatric hospital. But for some reason, this doctor, instead of being a psychologist, he really likes space. And so, like, his whole arc is, space is cool, guys. And it's like, what do you mean? That wasn't, like, anything. That's not, like, it becomes, like, a romantic thing between Eriko and this doctor. And it's like, I guess they like space together. But Eriko's death was so poignant. And it's not like she was fridged, because there was a reason behind her death, and it was telling us something, you know, it was telling us about the stigma against trans individuals. That was what her death was. And she kind of went out in the way Eriko's character would. So in the book, Eriko is stabbed by someone who hates the fact that he has fallen for a trans person, and he is, like, you know, he is extremely transphobic, and he feels like this, like, Eriko did this on purpose, making him fall in love with her. And so he kills her, but whilst she's been stabbed, she goes out just whacking this guy in the head, I think with like a heavy bust, and killing him too. And it's so in character for Eriko. But in this, she just, all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, she actually, like, she's kind of messed up because her brain, because she thinks she's a woman. But then she's discharged, and it's like, she's discharged because she's like a nice person now and is able to, like, you know, let go of the attachment to her child, and now is seeing the psychiatrist who has now become someone working at the planetarium, which, what was the need for him to be a psychiatrist then? So I just felt, and I think I know why. You know, this is late 80s in Japan. You know, I believe this is a direct-to-television adaptation, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So they're like, okay, well, we're not going to show the murder, and, you know, Yuichi, I think, is an alcoholic in the second half of the book, so we can't show that on television either. And then We can't show Mikage being a strong, independent woman, and I know Japan still does have a massive misogyny problem, so that still might be something that's an issue in terms of it being on television right now, because Mikage, in the book, becomes someone who's very confident, has self-belief, is like, yeah, I'm a chef, I'm killing it, oh, I've got this awesome opportunity to go traveling, and I want to go and take it, and she actively is like, I am going to do this. Even though Yuichi is struggling, she's like, Yuichi, I care about you, I've done what I can for you, but I've got to take this opportunity. In the movie, it's Mikage is like, oh, man, I'm not that good of a chef. I guess I've gotten better, but I'm not that good. And then she gets the opportunity to travel to Europe, and she's like, no, I'm not doing that because Yuichi needs me. Even though Yuichi's like, hey, Mikage, you should go to Europe. That sounds sick. But no, she throws away that opportunity to go and live with Yuichi. And it's like, my brother in Christ, it's 6 months in Europe, come back and live with him. You know, let him save up the key money to go and rent a flat somewhere. They go and live in a house somewhere, I think near where her grandmother is buried. But it's like, why? Literally, why? But it felt like they were like, there's too much feminism in this book. We gotta show the women their place. And it's just mind-blowing because you had this book that was so good at addressing, you know, a strong female character, or at least building her up to be a strong female character, discussing trans identity, discussing depression, discussing alcoholism, and then you're like, yeah, but let's make it like a cheap rom-com. I don't get it. I just don't. I get it. I get why it's happened, because this is a movie from the late 80s in Japan. You know, that's why it has changed so drastically, obviously. But it just killed it. It's annoying because for the first hour, it kind of felt like they were following the same story. Obviously, there were things they had to throw in there because obviously you're not going to have Mikage narrating the book. But you throw in a couple of characters so you can get that exposition out, like her landlord, and they gave one of her friends like extra screen time because you needed her to bounce off that person to get some exposition out. I get that, that's fine, it's an adaptation, you're gonna do that. But it's just so disappointing they changed the plot itself so much. So that was our first movie club episode. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below what you think, members. Thank you for becoming a movie club member. I know it is a more expensive tier, and so I really appreciate you doing this. I'm going to try and do these every month. Sometimes it's going to be 2 a month. The expectation for September was there was going to be 2, but some personal stuff popped up. I'll try and get a second one out though, maybe if I have time. It's Monday, maybe sometime this week I can get the other adaptation of Kitchen done, and then you can see and have me compare the two. But let me know down below if you have any suggestions of books that you know I've watched and I can make a comparison for. I'm thinking of doing one on Tales of Earthsea because I think I'm going to be disappointed, so I might do that. I want to do like a Frankenstein one and a Dracula one too, I think. Maybe Van Helsing. Does that count as a Dracula adaptation? I think it does. So thank you. Let me know in the comments down below if you've had any suggestions. And yeah, watch a great book adaptation.